Imagine doing everything right for your hair, good shampoo, oils, even supplements, and still seeing hair in the drain. What if the real problem isn't how much zinc you're taking, but the exact form of zinc your body can actually use? In this video, we're going to break down Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate, how it compares to other zinc forms, and why it may be one of the most powerful yet overlooked tools for hair regrowth. Hi, this is Dr. Eric Berg, DC. Zinc is one of the most critical minerals for hair follicles. Your hair is one of the fastest growing tissues in the body, and every step of that growth process depends on zinc. Without enough usable zinc, hair follicles slow down, shrink, and eventually stop producing strong hair strands. But here's the key point most people miss. Not all zinc works the same inside your body. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate is a chelated form of zinc. That means the zinc is bound to the amino acid L-methionine. This matters because your body recognizes amino acids very easily. When zinc is attached to methionine, it slips through the intestinal wall more efficiently and ends up where it's needed, instead of being wasted or irritating the gut. Now let's compare this to common zinc sulfate. Zinc sulfate on its own is absorbed poorly and often causes stomach upset. Many people stop taking zinc because it makes them nauseous, not realizing it's the form, not the mineral itself, causing the issue. With zinc L-Methionine Sulphate, absorption is significantly higher and digestive discomfort is much lower. When zinc is properly absorbed, hair follicles respond fast. Zinc directly supports keratin production, which is the protein that makes up your hair. It also activates enzymes that control cell division in the hair root. If those enzymes don't work, hair growth stalls. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate helps turn those systems back on. Another major benefit is hormone balance. Zinc plays a critical role in regulating DHT, the hormone linked to pattern hair thinning. Zinc doesn't block DHT aggressively like drugs do, but it helps normalize the enzyme that converts testosterone into excess DHT. This means healthier follicles without disrupting hormones. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate also supports the immune system of the scalp. Many cases of hair loss involve low-grade inflammation around hair follicles. Zinc calms that inflammation and supports tissue repair. When the scalp environment improves, dormant follicles have a chance to re-enter the growth phase. One reason this form stands out is methionine itself. Methionine is a sulfur-containing amino acid, and sulfur is a key building block for strong hair strands. This creates a synergy. You're not just delivering zinc, you're delivering zinc with a helper that supports hair structure at the same time. People often ask how this compares to zinc gluconate or zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is very poorly absorbed and is best suited for topical use, not hair regrowth. Zinc gluconate is better, but still doesn't match the absorption and cellular delivery of zinc bound to methionine. If the goal is hair regrowth, bioavailability matters more than the labeled dose. Another overlooked factor is stress. Stress depletes zinc rapidly, and chronic stress is one of the fastest ways to trigger shedding. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate replenishes zinc stores more efficiently, helping the body recover from stress-related hair loss faster. Consistency is key. Hair follicles need a steady supply of nutrients over time. When zinc levels stabilize, shedding slows first, then thickness improves, and finally regrowth becomes noticeable. This doesn't happen overnight, but with the right form of zinc, the process is far more reliable. If you're already taking zinc and not seeing results, don't assume zinc doesn't work. The form may be the problem. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate is designed to work with your biology, not against it. If you want to support stronger, thicker hair naturally, start by giving your body zinc it can actually absorb and use. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate delivers zinc in a highly absorbable form, and this one detail can completely change how your hair follicles respond. To understand why this matters so much for hair regrowth, we need to first talk about what actually happens inside the body when you take zinc. Most people think zinc is zinc, and as long as they're swallowing a tablet, their hair should benefit. But the truth is, zinc that never gets absorbed might as well not exist. Hair follicles are extremely demanding tissues. They divide rapidly, they need constant protein synthesis, and they rely on enzymes that cannot function without zinc. If zinc doesn't reach the follicle, hair growth slows, hair becomes thinner, and shedding increases. This is why zinc deficiency is so strongly linked to hair loss, even in people who eat reasonably well. Here's where zinc L-Methionine Sulphate becomes different. This form of zinc is chelated to the amino acid L-methionine. Chelation simply means the zinc is attached to something your body already knows how to transport. Amino acids have dedicated transport systems in the gut. When zinc is bound to methionine, it uses those transport systems to move efficiently through the intestinal lining and into the bloodstream. This is critical because plain zinc salts often compete with other minerals like iron and calcium for absorption. They also tend to bind with compounds in food, which reduces how much zinc actually gets into your body. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate avoids much of this competition, meaning more zinc reaches your tissues, including the scalp. Once zinc enters circulation, it has several direct effects on hair follicles. One of the most important is keratin synthesis. Keratin is the structural protein that makes up your hair shaft. Without enough zinc, keratin production becomes faulty. Hair strands grow weaker, thinner, and more prone to breakage. With adequate bioavailable zinc, keratin production becomes stronger and more organized, resulting in thicker, more resilient hair. Zinc also plays a central role in DNA replication and cell division. Hair growth depends on rapidly dividing cells in the hair root. These cells are among the fastest dividing cells in the body, which makes them extremely sensitive to nutrient shortages. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate ensures a steady supply of zinc to support this rapid cell turnover, allowing follicles to remain in the active growth phase longer. Another key function of zinc is enzyme activation. There are hundreds of enzymes that require zinc as a cofactor. Many of these enzymes regulate metabolism inside the hair follicle. When zinc levels are low, these enzymes slow down, and hair growth becomes inefficient. By delivering zinc in a form the body can easily absorb, zinc L-methionine sulfate helps restore normal enzyme activity in the follicle. Now let's talk about why methionine matters. Methionine is a sulfur-containing amino acid. Sulfur is one of the most important elements for hair strength. Hair structure relies heavily on sulfur bonds, which give hair its durability and elasticity. And zinc is paired with methionine. You're not just improving zinc absorption, you're also providing a building block that directly supports hair structure. This combination creates a synergistic effect. Zinc activates the enzymes needed for growth, while methionine supports the physical structure of the hair strand. This is one reason people often notice improvements not only in hair regrowth, but also in hair texture and thickness when using this form of zinc. Another important point is scalp health. Zinc is essential for maintaining the integrity of skin tissue, including the scalp. Poor zinc absorption can lead to a dry, irritated scalp environment that is not friendly to hair growth. Zinc L-methionine sulphate helps support healthy skin cell turnover, which keeps the scalp balanced and better able to support active follicles. Inflammation is another hidden factor in hair loss. Low-grade inflammation around the follicle can push hair into the resting phase prematurely. Zinc has anti-inflammatory properties that help calm this response. When zinc is delivered efficiently, inflammation around the follicle decreases, allowing hair to stay in the growth phase longer. Many people don't realize how quickly zinc can be depleted. Stress, poor sleep, high sugar intake, and chronic inflammation all drain zinc levels. Even if someone consumes zinc in their diet, they may still be functionally deficient due to poor absorption or increased demand. Zinc L-methionine sulphate helps replenish zinc stores more effectively, especially during periods of stress-related hair shedding. Another advantage of this form is tolerance. One of the biggest reasons people stop taking zinc supplements is nausea. This often happens with poorly absorbed zinc forms that irritate the stomach lining. Because zinc L-methionine sulphate is better absorbed, it tends to be gentler on the digestive system. Better tolerance leads to better consistency, and consistency is essential for hair regrowth. Hair growth is not an overnight process. Follicles need weeks to months of proper nutrition to shift from shedding to regrowth. When zinc levels stabilize, the first thing most people notice is reduced hair fall. Then hair begins to feel stronger. Over time, dormant follicles may begin producing new hair again. This process is far more reliable when zinc is delivered in a form the body can actually use. Zinc also interacts with other nutrients involved in hair growth, such as biotin, vitamin A, and protein. Without zinc, these nutrients cannot fully perform their roles. Zinc L-methionine sulphate helps optimize the entire hair growth network, not just one isolated pathway. Another important detail is age. As we get older, stomach acid tends to decrease. Low stomach acid reduces mineral absorption, including zinc. Chelated forms like Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate are less dependent on high stomach acid, making them especially useful for older individuals experiencing thinning hair. Our follicles are also sensitive to oxidative stress. Zinc plays a role in antioxidant enzymes that protect cells from damage. When zinc is deficient, follicles become more vulnerable to environmental stressors. Adequate zinc helps protect the follicle environment, allowing growth processes to continue uninterrupted. What makes Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate stand out is not that it's a miracle, but that it works with the body's natural systems. Instead of forcing absorption, it uses amino acid pathways your body already relies on. This efficiency is what makes it so effective for hair regrowth. If someone has tried zinc before and saw no improvement, it doesn't mean zinc wasn't needed. It often means the form wasn't right. Hair follicles don't respond to what you swallow, they respond to what actually reaches them. When zinc finally reaches the follicle in sufficient amounts, it sends a signal that resources are available again. Growth resumes, repair improves, and hair quality gradually returns. This is why absorption is everything when it comes to mineral supplementation. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate provides a practical solution to one of the biggest obstacles in hair regrowth: nutrient delivery. By improving absorption, supporting keratin production, enhancing enzyme function, and strengthening hair structure through methionine, it addresses hair loss at its root. If your goal is superior hair regrowth, the conversation shouldn't start with how much zinc you're taking. It should start with how much zinc your body is actually absorbing and using. That's where Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate makes all the difference. Compared to standard zinc sulfate, gluconate, or oxide, Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate causes less stomach irritation and provides superior cellular delivery for consistent hair regrowth. And this comparison is where many people finally understand why their previous supplements didn't work. Let's start with the most common form people encounter: zinc sulfate. Zinc sulfate is often used because it's cheap and contains a high percentage of elemental zinc. On paper, it looks powerful, but inside the body, zinc sulfate is harsh. It dissociates quickly in the stomach, releasing free zinc ions that can irritate the stomach lining. This is why nausea is such a common side effect. When the stomach becomes irritated, the body actually reduces absorption as a protective mechanism. So even though the label shows a high dose, very little zinc may actually reach the bloodstream. For hair regrowth, this is a major problem. Hair follicles don't care about what's written on the supplement bottle. They only respond to zinc that successfully makes it into circulation and then into the follicle. Zinc sulfate often fails at this step. Many people stop taking it altogether because of discomfort, which completely eliminates any chance of long-term hair benefits. Now let's look at zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is one of the poorest absorbed forms of zinc. It's commonly used in topical products like sunscreens and creams, not because it's good for internal absorption, but because it sits on the surface. When taken orally, zinc oxide passes through the digestive system with minimal absorption. For hair regrowth, this form is essentially ineffective. It may slightly increase zinc intake, but not enough to correct a deficiency at the follicle level. Zinc gluconate is often marketed as a gentler alternative, and it is better tolerated than zinc sulfate or oxide. It binds zinc to gluconic acid, which improves absorption to some extent. However, gluconate still relies heavily on mineral transport pathways that are easily disrupted by other nutrients. Calcium, iron, and even fiber can interfere with its absorption. This means results can be inconsistent, especially if someone is taking multiple supplements or eating mineral-rich foods. This inconsistency is one of the biggest reasons people feel confused about zinc and hair regrowth. Some days absorption is decent, other days it's poor. Hair follicles need stability. They need a steady, predictable supply of zinc to remain in the growth phase. Fluctuating zinc delivery sends mixed signals to the follicle, which can prolong shedding. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate works differently. Because zinc is bound to the amino acid methionine, it enters the body through amino acid transport systems rather than competing directly with other minerals. This dramatically improves consistency. Even when with food, absorption remains high. This means the zinc actually reaches cells that need it, including hair follicles. Another major advantage is cellular delivery. Getting zinc into the bloodstream is only the first step. The zinc still needs to enter cells. Hair follicle cells are highly active and require zinc inside the cell to activate enzymes and support growth. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate is more efficient at crossing cell membranes, which means more zinc ends up where it can actually do its job. This improved cellular delivery translates directly into better hair outcomes. When follicles consistently receive zinc, they can maintain proper protein synthesis. Keratin production becomes more efficient. Hair shafts grow thicker and stronger. Breakage decreases. Over time, this creates the appearance of fuller hair, even before new growth becomes obvious. Digestive tolerance is another key factor that sets this form apart. Many people underestimate how important tolerance is. A supplement that causes discomfort will not be taken consistently. Hair regrowth requires months of steady nutritional support. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate is less irritating because the zinc remains bound during digestion. This reduces direct contact with the stomach lining and minimizes nausea. Consistency is everything for hair regrowth. Hair follicles operate on cycles that last weeks to months. If zinc intake is sporadic, follicles may never receive enough sustained support to switch back in to active growth. A well-tolerated, highly absorbable form like zinc L-Methionine Sulphate increases the likelihood of long-term adherence, which directly improves results. Another important comparison involves stress and gut health. Stress reduces stomach acid and disrupts digestion. Low stomach acid makes it harder to absorb minerals like zinc. Forms such as zinc sulfate and oxide are highly dependent on adequate stomach acid. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate is less dependent on this, making it more reliable in people dealing with chronic stress, digestive issues, or aging-related changes in digestion. Hair loss often occurs during periods of stress, illness, or hormonal changes. During these times, zinc requirements increase while absorption decreases. This creates a perfect storm for shedding. Using a form of zinc that bypasses many digestive limitations can help restore zinc levels more efficiently and support faster recovery from hair loss episodes. Another overlooked aspect is inflammation. Poorly absorbed zinc forms can irritate the gut, triggering low-grade inflammation. This inflammation can reduce nutrient absorption even further and indirectly worsen hair loss. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate, by contrast, is less inflammatory and supports gut integrity. A healthier gut improves overall nutrient delivery to the scalp. There's also the issue of dosage perception. People often increase their zinc dose when they don't see results, assuming more is better. With poorly absorbed forms, this can increase side effects without improving hair growth. With a highly absorbable form, lower doses may be more effective because the zinc is actually utilized. This reduces the risk of imbalance with other minerals like copper. Hair follicles are sensitive to mineral balance. Excess zinc that isn't properly regulated can interfere with other nutrients. Efficient absorption and utilization reduce the need for excessive dosing, creating a safer and more balanced approach to hair regrowth. Another comparison point is speed of response. While hair growth itself takes time, internal changes occur much sooner. With zinc L-Methionine Sulphate, zinc levels in tissues can normalize more quickly. This often leads to earlier reductions in shedding compared to less absorbable forms. Early improvements help reinforce consistency, which further supports long-term regrowth. Many people who switch to this form after trying others report that their hair feels stronger and sheds less within weeks. This doesn't mean full regrowth happens instantly, but it indicates that follicles are receiving the nutrients they've been missing. It's also important to understand that hair loss is rarely caused by one factor. It's usually a combination of stress, inflammation, hormonal shifts, and nutrient deficiencies. Zinc is involved in all of these processes. Using a form that reliably reaches cells allows zinc to perform all of its roles simultaneously rather than partially. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate supports immune regulation, enzyme activation, protein synthesis, and tissue repair. Other forms may support some of these functions inconsistently depending on absorption and tolerance. Hair follicles respond best when all these systems work together. Another reason this comparison matters is long-term use. Hair regrowth strategies are not short-term fixes. They are ongoing support systems. A supplement that causes discomfort or produces inconsistent results is unlikely to be maintained. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate is better suited for long-term use because it aligns with the body's natural transport mechanisms. This is especially important for people with chronic thinning or genetic hair loss patterns. These individuals need continuous follicle support. Intermittent zinc delivery is not enough. Consistent cellular zinc availability helps slow follicle miniaturization and supports healthier growth cycles over time. When you look at all these factors together, absorption, tolerance, cellular delivery, consistency, and long-term use, the comparison becomes very clear. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate is not just another zinc option. It addresses the main weaknesses of zinc sulfate, gluconate, and oxide. If someone has tried zinc before and experienced nausea, no results, or inconsistent improvements, it's very likely the form was the limiting factor. Switching to a form that the body can absorb and use efficiently changes the entire outcome. Hair regrowth depends on reliable internal conditions. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate provides those conditions by delivering zinc gently, consistently, and directly to the cells that need it most. That reliability is what makes it superior for consistent hair regrowth compared to standard zinc forms by supporting DHT balance, reducing scalp inflammation, and supplying sulfur through methionine. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate creates the ideal internal environment for thicker, healthier hair, and this internal environment is what ultimately determines whether hair follicles grow or shut down. Hair loss is rarely just about one missing nutrient. It's usually the result of an internal environment that no longer favors growth. Hair follicles are incredibly sensitive to hormones, inflammation, and nutrient availability. When these factors are out of balance, follicles receive a signal that resources are scarce or conditions are unfavorable, and they shift into a resting or shedding phase. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate helps correct several of these internal signals at the same time. One of the most important factors in hair thinning, especially in men and many women, is DHT. DHT is a hormone derived from testosterone, and in excess, it can shrink hair follicles over time. As follicles become smaller, the hair they produce becomes thinner, shorter, and eventually stops growing. Many people think the only way to address DHT is through strong medications, but zinc plays a natural regulatory role in this process. Zinc helps modulate the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT. This doesn't mean zinc eliminates DHT entirely, which would be unhealthy. Instead, it helps keep DHT within a normal range. When zinc levels are low, this enzyme can become overactive, leading to higher local DHT levels around the hair follicle. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate, by improving zinc availability, helps normalize this process. What makes this especially important is where DHT does its damage. DHT acts locally at the hair follicle. Even if blood hormone levels appear normal, the follicle itself may be experiencing excess DHT activity. Zinc inside follicle cells helps reduce this local impact, protecting the follicle from gradual miniaturization. Another major contributor to hair loss is inflammation. Inflammation doesn't always show up as redness or pain. Often it's low-grade and chronic. Around the hair follicle, this type of inflammation disrupts the growth cycle. Hair spends less time growing and more time resting. Over time, this leads to thinning and shedding. Zinc has well-documented anti-inflammatory properties. It helps regulate immune activity and reduces the release of inflammatory compounds. When zinc is deficient, the immune system can become overactive, attacking tissues that should be left alone, including hair follicles. This is one reason zinc deficiency is linked to certain forms of hair loss. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate supports immune balance at the scalp. By delivering Zi efficiently, it helps calm unnecessary inflammation around follicles. This creates a more stable environment where hair can grow uninterrupted. When inflammation decreases, follicles are more likely to remain in the active growth phase. Scalp health is deeply connected to hair growth. The scalp is skin, and skin renewal depends heavily on zinc. Poor zinc availability can lead to dryness, flaking, and a compromised barrier. This makes the scalp more vulnerable to irritation and inflammation. Zinc supports normal skin cell turnover and repair, helping maintain a healthy scalp surface. Another key element in this keynote is sulfur, provided through methionine. Methionine is a sulfur-containing amino acid, and sulfur is essential for hair structure. Hair strands are held together by sulfur-based bonds. These bonds give hair its strength and resilience. When sulfur intake is low, hair becomes weak, brittle, and prone to breakage. By pairing zinc with methionine, Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate supports hair from two angles. Zinc activates growth processes, while methionine supplies sulfur needed to build strong hair fibers. This combination improves not just hair quantity but hair quality. Sulfur also plays a role in detoxification and cellular protection. It supports antioxidant systems that protect hair follicle cells from damage. Oxidative stress can damage follicle DNA and proteins, disrupting growth. Adequate sulfur helps neutralize this stress, allowing follicles to funct. Ion normally. Another important factor is circulation. Hair follicles rely on a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients through the bloodstream. Inflammation and hormonal imbalance can impair microcirculation around the follicle. Zinc helps support healthy blood vessel function and tissue repair, indirectly improving nutrient delivery to the scalp. Stress ties all of these factors together. Stress increases DHT activity, promotes inflammation, and depletes zinc stores. During prolonged stress, hair loss often accelerates. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate helps replenish zinc more efficiently, supporting the body's ability to cope with stress. This reduces stress-related shedding and supports recovery. Sleep quality also influences hair growth. Poor sleep disrupts hormone regulation and increases inflammation. Zinc plays a role in sleep regulation and nervous system function. By supporting zinc levels, this form of zinc indirectly supports better sleep patterns, which further improves the internal environment for hair growth. Another overlooked aspect is the immune privilege of hair follicles. Hair follicles are normally protected from immune attack. In certain conditions, this protection breaks down, leading to hair loss. Zinc helps maintain immune tolerance, reducing the likelihood of immune-related follicle damage. As we age, the internal environment becomes less favorable for hair growth. Hormonal changes, increased inflammation, and reduced nutrient absorption all contribute to thinning hair. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate addresses these age-related changes by improving nutrient delivery and supporting regulatory systems. Hair growth also depends on proper protein metabolism. Zinc is required for enzymes involved in protein synthesis. Without enough zinc, even adequate protein intake may not translate into strong hair growth. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate ensures zinc is available to support these metabolic processes. Another benefit of methionine is its role in methylation, a process that affects gene expression and cell function. Proper methylation supports healthy cell division and repair, including in hair follicles. This adds another layer of support to hair regrowth. When all these factors come together, balanced hormones, reduced inflammation, strong structural support, and efficient metabolism, hair follicles receive a clear signal that conditions are favorable for growth. They remain active longer and produce stronger hair. This is why focusing on just one aspect of hair loss rarely works. Blocking DHT without addressing inflammation or nutrient deficiencies leads to incomplete results. Supporting nutrients without addressing hormonal balance also falls short. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate helps bridge these gaps by influencing multiple systems at once. It's important to set realistic expectations. This form of zinc doesn't force hair to grow. Instead, it removes obstacles that prevent growth. When follicles are no longer under hormonal, inflammatory, or structural stress, they can return to their natural growth cycle. People often notice improvements in scalp comfort, reduced shedding, and stronger hair texture before visible regrowth appears. These are signs that the internal environment is improving. Over time, as follicles stabilize, regrowth becomes more noticeable. The goal of hair regrowth is not just adding more hair, but creating conditions where hair can continue to grow long-term. Zinc L-Methionine Sulphate supports this goal by maintaining balance rather than forcing change. When the internal environment supports growth, hair follows naturally. That's the real power of zinc L-methionine sulfate. It doesn't act as a quick fix, it acts as a foundation. And when the foundation is strong, thicker, healthier hair becomes a natural outcome rather than a constant struggle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.